growing up in an area where there's a lot of despondency, a lot of individuals who lacked aspirations and stuff, and I was a product of that as well. I didn't see myself doing anything productive in my society. I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do in the future, and life really seemed quite bleak for me. I remember one situation where we were all on the estate one day and we were talking about life in general. We were talking about what we wanted to do and stuff, and we all just came to this conclusion that there was just no hope for us, that we were this covert society of people, this underground society of people that society didn't really want to know. And it was that void that I had in my heart that I constantly used to question myself about where was I going and what did I want out of life.
He's been shot. The 15-year-old was suffering from gunshot wounds.
Since I've come to Tawheed and I've read about the companions and the Salaf and everyone else, I know who I am. I'm the creation of Allah.
Hi, my name's Solomon and I'm 30 years old from South London, and I was asked today to give you a brief insight into my world. I grew up in a council estate from immigrant parents. Both of my parents came from Nigeria about 40 years ago, and I wouldn't say that I had a bad upbringing, but it wasn't your conventional one. Frequently got involved with police, been stabbed, was involved in a lot of gangs and so on and so forth, and it was really, there was a lot of turning points in my life. There was a lot of turning points in my life in regards to some of the scenarios and some of the situations that I was faced with. Grew up in Kennington Park Estate. And at the time, in around like the early 2000s, Kennington Park was a very infested with a lot of gangs, and we would frequently get involved in police. I was a avid robber. I stole everything, literally, handbags, phone, a lot of petty crime. But as I got older, I got more involved in this aspect of selling drugs and so on and so forth. So it was just one of them things that growing up in an area where there's a lot of despondency, a lot of individuals who lacked aspirations and stuff, and I was a product of that as well. I didn't see myself doing anything productive in my society. I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do in the future, and life really seemed quite bleak for me. I remember one situation where we were all on the estate one day and we were talking about life in general. We were talking about what we wanted to do and stuff, and we all just came to this conclusion that there was just no hope for us, that we were this covert society of people, this underground society of people that society didn't really want to know. And it was that void that I had in my heart that I constantly used to question myself about where was I going and what did I want out of life. My mum, she was a fantastic individual. She constantly gave us support. She constantly gave us support, and she gave us the right advice, and she constantly told us what we needed to do in order to change our circumstances. I grew up in a predominantly Christian home, a very loving home at that as well. I've got about 6 brothers and sisters. At this time, most of them are doing well. And my sister, I remember, may God bless her, she was one of the ones that whenever I got involved with police, that she would come to the police station and bail me out, because my mother was literally, she wasn't concerned. Now, I mean, speaking in front of you today, I mean, I may seem as someone who is quite normal, but at that time I wasn't. I was expelled. I got expelled from school at the age of, I think, 14. Got sent to Nigeria for about 2 to 3 years. Got stabbed. I got rushed as well. Also, I'd done the same to other individuals as well. But it wasn't until that pivotal point in my life where I started to seriously question myself of where I'm going and what is my purpose in life. So, I mean, frequently we would have like a lot of discussions on the estate, just simply about religion. And I mean, we would constantly, I'm sure a lot of you would relate to this, but we would speak about the Illuminati and so on and so forth. And it was at that point where we would always come to a conclusion that, because most of us were Christian at the time. Most of us were Christian. We weren't practicing Christians, but we understood Christianity to the core. And we understood that it was very similar to Islam. Okay, in some of their practices were very similar. But it wasn't at one time where we were on the estate and we were talking about the Illuminati and America and so on and so forth, and this question kept on popping up about Islam. That was a question that kept on coming up, like, what was Islam and what is Islam about? So I remember on one occasion during that time in year 2004, a lot of my friends, around the Brixton area, a lot of people were accepting Islam, and unfortunately it was seen as kind of like this cult type of thing. So I was against it totally. I was literally against it to the extent where I remember when one of my friends, he came to my house one day, and he had accepted Islam 2 days before, and we were talking and going back and forth, and I can remember this like it was the other day. And he turned around and he was trying to invite us to Islam, and I was saying, never, I'll never be a Muslim. I'm Christian to the death of me. But anyway, at that same time, that same friend came to us on a different occasion, and for some strange reason, because I had heard so many prominent figures in the area accepting Islam, I really wanted to find out what it was about. I mean, what were these people, what were they feeling? I mean, what was the transition like? What was the mosque like? All those type of questions I wanted to be answered. So I decided to go with my friend to the mosque, and we sat down with the imam there, and he spoke to us. We had a small debate about Christianity, and he showed me the difference between Christianity and Islam. I spoke about going to the mosque and speaking with the imam, and some of the things we spoke about was the separation between Islam and Christianity, and how the two religions separate in terms of their belief. So we spoke about Jesus not being the Son of God, and God himself not having a son and not having anyone who is associated with him. In fact, it's such it's an abomination in a sense, and it's degrading to our Lord's high esteem. It's very degrading, and it was something which really set home for me. And when we spoke about all the prophets, Prophet Moses and Prophet Abraham, and these are names that I had heard about in Islam, and everything made sense, and in this belief system and what being a Muslim is really about, and that is about sharing the message and at least trying to be the best representative of a faith of monotheism, and being a person who believes in God. And at that point, I remember I was with Abdul Hakim, for those that know his fingers, and we sat down, and we made a decision right at that point that we were going to accept Islam. So we left the mosque, we left the mosque on that day, and I went home, and I didn't tell my parents for about, I think about 3 to 2 weeks, because I didn't know how my mum was going to take it, because my mum is like, she nurtured us upon Christianity, and for your son who literally came in the earth after you to accept another faith would be quite difficult. But when I did actually sit down with my mum and I told her, she was actually quite happy, because what happened to me is that I literally, my whole personality changed. I was quite reserved, you know, when you accept something new, this surge of spirituality just comes to you and it makes you extremely humble. So I told my mum, she was quite happy with it, and shortly after that, that's when the learning began. I was quite fortunate enough to have some really good people around me, some good figures in the community, and I'd just like to shout them out briefly, like Abdul Hakim and Komi and the likes of Abdul Aziz. They were like my mentors growing up, and they taught us the way, and they gave us kind of like a rounded, balanced outlook on Islam, on how to balance being a Muslim and how to balance being an individual who is a part of the society in the UK. So we stopped at that, and it was so we started this transition into faith, and we continued up until now. I'm not gonna have that cliche story just to kind of like depict that I'm the best representative of Islam, but I just want to speak about the phases that I went through. Of course, coming from a council estate, most of us smoked, drinked, done most of the things that anybody would do, and when I accepted Islam, I had to slowly phase that out of my life. I mean, I wasn't a smoker. I was more of I was more of the seller. I was more of the businessman, the entrepreneur, and the estate. So, but what happened when I accepted Islam, I started to really feel a bit despondent, started to feel that I wasn't really interested in hanging around and stuff like that. I wanted to make money. So what happened is that I started to hang around the mosque more often, and but I was still doing what I was doing on the side, but I was hanging around the mosque and hanging around a few brothers who were religious, and slowly that entrepreneurial mindset of selling drugs slowly phased out, and I transitioned into the work environment with some good friends as well. So I would frequently attend the mosque and attend lectures and so on and so forth. So I had the great opportunity to teach in Saudi Arabia, and it was quite, you know, it's quite funny, because when God has a plan for you, it's like there's no way of you averting it. At the time, I didn't have a degree. All I had was a CELTA, and this particular job that I applied for, one of the prerequisites was that I were to have a degree and a CELTA, but I miraculously, by the will of God, got the job, and I traveled to Saudi Arabia, and I was there for like 3 years. I had a fantastic experience. I really got in touch with myself, really started to appreciate faith a bit more, had this kind of balanced outlook on life. Really, I found this kind of equilibrium of faith and dunya per se, and attaining like worldly things. And whilst I was there, it was at that point where I was at home with my we're gonna get into this now, but my forthcoming business partner, and we decided to set up a business from Saudi Arabia. So again, and again, what happened is that whilst we were there, preparations were made, and I came back to the UK. But before that, I forgot to mention is that whilst I was in Saudi Arabia, I had the opportunity, God gave me the opportunity of getting a master's in applied linguistics. I've done it distance learning. I've done it for about 1.5 years. That was quite difficult, but the reason why I'm mentioning these things to you, I'm mentioning the progressiveness of what faith can do. I'm just a simple council estate boy, not really much going on, but accepted faith and progressed at the same time. And this is what Islam is really about. It's really about progressiveness. It's just about coming out and learning, because some of our predecessors, the people that came before us, some prominent scholars. They were scholars in sciences which you cannot even fathom. They were psychologists, they were theologians, they had expertise that secular studies teach us, but a lot of these studies that secular studies teach us are actually facets of Islam. And what I would say to everybody in general is that we need to plug ourselves back into that, but really remain balanced so that we can become a part of society and influence society on a major scale. But anyway, preparations were made. Preparations were made to come back to the UK to set up this business, and I came back to the UK in 2014, and that's when the brand Signature Fragrances London was born. It just shows you the sacrifice that one has to make because of faith. It's not easy, but I'm telling you, the person who you become, the discipline that you have is remarkable. Do you understand? You're a person. You're a person of identity, and you're a person of purpose, and that's what makes you shine in a room. And this is how Islam has benefited me in a massive sense, and it's helped me to this point I'm at now. Our company, thankfully, we're in about 16 stores across Europe. We are in talks with other distributors from other Middle Eastern countries, and we're still working hard to establish the brand as much as possible here in the UK. I'm not going to say it's easy, but one thing I am going to say is that I'm finding myself, and I'm becoming this new me, this person of faith, but this person of trying to create a balance in my lifestyle and trying to have offering some sort of value to the world and to my community, because a lot of the people who I left behind are literally still struggling with themselves, still doing the same things, whether it's selling drugs, whether it's doing robberies, and I feel that through our business and through our identity we can offer this help with the implicit intention of these people seeing what faith we are upon and accepting it because of that. So I just want to thank you all today for giving me the chance to speak to you, and I just hope that you just digest this well, and any mistakes that I've made, just please forgive me. One thing I'm going to say is that I'm not standing in front of you acting as if I'm the best Muslim in the world. I was asked by my lovely friend Hussein to do this. I've known him for many years, and he just wanted me just to come and speak to you and just to come and enlighten you, and to say that for non-Muslims, look into Islam. And even if you don't look at Islam, even if you're looking into Islam and it doesn't resonate with you, just think about your purpose of life. Just question yourself. I know the world, I know we live in a world where it's, I mean the glitz and the glamour can distract you from the real purpose, but just think about the people who have just passed away and where are they going, and even if you don't believe they're going anywhere, are you not scared of that uncertainty and that lack of insight into where you would go? And I would say for Muslims, just try your best, just continue. For those who are trying to set up businesses but they don't want to mix their businesses with the secular society we live, I just say, look, just try and be balanced as much as possible, and read a lot of books as well. Read a lot of business books, because even non-Muslims go through this stage of trying to find themselves. I mean, entrepreneurs are not your average individual. They are risk takers, and everyone takes risks. Do you understand? Everyone takes risks, and don't think that you're a Muslim that you can't do what you aspire to do. You can do what you aspire to do. You just have to become an indifferent individual, and you have to consciously and you have to discipline yourself to try and see the bigger picture, and most importantly offer value to your community.
Go.
I mean, one of the benefits of being a Muslim and a businessman is that this thing of identity is so key. And for example, you can go into a room. I mean, I'm very tall and I stand out like a sore thumb. So you can go into a room and everyone else is chatting and everyone else is talking about different types of people, but because you know that small talk and backbiting is something which is detested against in your faith, you stay away from it. And what that does for you, it kind of like, it makes you shine like a light bulb, and people see you very unique, and they deal with you very different to how they would deal with other people. They see you as a person of purpose, and they see you as a person who is extremely valuable. Another benefit is that it makes you disciplined. I think the prayers make you disciplined. I'm not saying this to blow my trumpet, but I remember a brother mentioned to me that this goal that you're on, where you're trying to become a businessman and so on and so forth, you need to ensure that you wake up for Fajr, and not only wake up for Fajr, you pray in the mosque, because that's a millionaire mindset. Successful people, and when you look at our prophets, you look at the companions, they sacrificed, but most importantly they got up early in the morning. Whilst everyone is sleeping, they were up. And this is something that I try and incorporate in my life, regardless of if my faith is high or low. I try to incorporate this thing because I know what I want to achieve and I know who I want to have an impact on. So I think being a Muslim has made me more of a rounded individual. It's made me more fearless. It's made me more strongly aspirational. And I mean, there's some times where, I mean, shaking women's hands and stuff like that, difficult, very difficult, because I mean, sometimes I'm not in a mood to kind of like explain why we don't shake hands, but if you sincerely don't want to do it, Allah will make a way out for you. So as I said, I think the main thing for me is just this discipline thing. Islam is a disciplined religion, and I'm telling you, use all the facets. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. Just, Islam's fantastic. I mean, we have our ups and downs. Fantastic, I'm telling you. I can't emphasize it more. I'm just average. I'm an average guy, but I just believe in Allah, and I love Him with all my heart, and I just hope that people understand this, and for the non-Muslims as well. If you've got any questions, just come over and just come and ask. Do you understand? We're not aliens. We're not abnormal. We're normal people. We bicker with our wife. We fight. We fall into mistakes. Do you understand? But just that we just believe that we are going somewhere, and that place is the truth.
So sorry, man. Say there's a brother right now in his room watching this, yeah? Smoking weed, you know what I'm saying, listening to tunes. He knows it's bad, yeah? He knows he's not happy with it. How did you get from that situation, feeling bad, but feeling that I'm not strong enough or good enough to practice? How did you actually change and get on your Islamic 2 feet?
I think personally, it's your friends. Your friends play a major role in you being weak, then you kind of like waking up and then realizing what you're doing is wrong and stopping it and coming back to faith. I think friends are a key thing in there, and if you can, I know if you're stuck in an environment where you're just literally around a lot of negative people, it's best to try and like take a leap out of that and go to the mosque, just sit down with a few friends who are extremely positive and extremely aspirational in what they want out of life, and I think that will help you change your philosophy and change from what you're doing now into doing something which is even better. So friends are really key. I've got some fantastic friends that when I am weak, who constantly advise, even if they don't advise explicitly, by their actions, you'd see that, for example, you know what, I need to pick up the pace here and I need to change and come back to my normal ways. And so yeah, I think that's one of the key things I would say, is that your friends, that you need to change from your friends that you've got now to friends that will help you. When we die, we don't have any excuses. Don't have no excuses. The language in the Quran, very simple. The things we do, the rituals, very simple. The ahadith is very simple. Even the stuff we're meant to stay away from is so simple. Like, for example, the simple thing of having sex outside of marriage and zina and stuff like that. Very difficult, very prevalent in this society. But at the same time, it has consequences. So Allah just says, just stay away from it until you get married. And that's just the advice I can give.
Jazakallah khair.
Yeah.
Allah bless you in this life and next.
Amen.
Your business successful.
Amen. Amen.
Jazakallah
Thanks
khair.
very much, man. Thanks. Take care.
Yeah, cool. That's fine.
Yeah?
Yourself up, man.
Good, yeah? Appreciate it, bro.
Thank you.
15-year-old was suffering from gunshot wounds.
Since I've come to Tawheed and I've read about the companions and the Salaf and everyone else, I know who I am. I'm the creation of Allah.